Kings 5:1. And so, you wonder, I don't know if you're wondering why I'm up here on a Sunday morning instead of a Sunday evening. The Sunday evening time slot is about 45 minutes for a message. And I thought in my wisdom, well, I'll do Sunday morning because it's only 30 minutes. Even though I prepare for 45 minutes, my message comes out in about 15. So I'm pretty sure if the pastor doesn't have anything, any announcements at the end, we're going to get out early. We're going to get to lunch early. We're going to beat that Sunday lunch crowd. We'll be there early. So I kind of want to give you my disclaimer before we start. And I'm going to tell you a story real quick about my Christian brother. Here in 2000, we were at the fair, and I had talked to a Christian brother, and at that time in the stock market, the tech stocks were going crazy. I mean, they're just absolutely going crazy. It was just like you put money in and it doubles up. So I was talking to this Christian brother, an older mentor, and he was talking about, the stock market and investing, and I already had invested a little bit. So we're talking, and man, after that, man, I went home and I doubled up. And I'm looking at my stock portfolio, and it's 9 o'clock at night, and I'm in my pajamas, and I open up my stock portfolio, my little book that they gave me. I thought, wow, this is it's too good to be true. And a few months later, about a month later, it crashed. And when you make those purchases with your stockbroker, he's encouraging you to spend a lot of money so his commission would be large. And he's giving you advice to do those kind of things. And, but he sends a disclaimer. And he usually emails it to you, or you get a packet. And this disclaimer says, "We love you," at the top, and you're doing great. And then at the very bottom of this disclaimer, there's words about that big. And it's that, you probably heard him on the radio. And the guy's a speed talker, speed reader, speed talker. And he's talking so fast, you say, and he's telling you, don't do this, you're going to lose money at it, and we're not liable for it. But you hear him and you say, what did he say? He talked so quick. So this guy gets this disclaimer, and it says, so ended up making it hurt. That event in my life, I look back on it, and it hurt. And I look back more on that, on some of these, the score you keep of victories and failures. So my disclaimer is today that what I want you to do, I'm going to give the message, and we're going to talk about God's grace, God's mercy, how awesome He is in each and every one of your lives. But I want you not to take my word for it. If this story interests you, I want you to go hammer those kind of things out for yourself. And then if you come and say, hey, Shane, you make a mistake. Okay, but do that after church. Okay? So, we're going to look at Naaman today. It's an awesome story. I have a Christian mentor I've been meeting with for probably almost 20 years. Took me under his wing when I became a new Christian, and taught me the Bible, has met with me faithfully, has been a good friend. We do a Bible study every week, and he has been an extreme influence in my life. Sometimes we don't even open the Bible. Sometimes we talk about things of life and love and marriages and kids, and we talk about the good things, and sometimes we get really in depth and we'll do a Bible study for an hour and a half. And to learn God's truth, His mercy, His grace, the salvation, and most of all for my life is forgiveness, the act of forgiveness. Forgiveness for me is probably one of the most difficult things that I think a Christian can actually learn in his life. If you can master that, God will move you along quickly, and because you're focus in on what the good things about love and grace and mercy has for the people around you. Let's look at Naaman. 2 Kings 5:1. Now Naaman, the commander of the army of the king of Syria, was a great and honorable man in the eyes of his master, because by him the Lord had given victory to Syria. He was also a mighty man of valor, but a leper. So, okay, so this is, when you study the Bible, you can't read it like a novel. You just can't do it. You gotta study it. So, I wonder why, I know why Pastor has men in our congregation come up and speak. So we come up and speak is that I have the same trials, the same fiery trials, the same defeats, family, marriage. I have those same kind of issues that all of you do. I'm not a preacher, I'm not a teacher, I'm not a deacon. I'm just a common man that sits over there in the corner. And Pastor, tapped on me and said, hey, it's time for you to do a message. Which I choked this morning and I said, this is the last one I'm doing. I'm not doing it again. So, how does a common man actually prepare for something? See this? I don't have volumes of commentaries. I got one big fat one. And this thing is good. So what I do is, most of the time when I read through the Bible, I have my commentary out, because there's a lot of things when I read the Bible that I don't understand. I don't understand it. I don't understand that truth. And a lot of people say, well, let God speak to you. Well, okay, that's good, But usually I read and then I want to have God call me on the telephone. I'm tired. Call me on the telephone, tell me what you want me to learn from that. So I think in today's society we need to put a great effort towards researching, hammering out these truths of God. We need to hammer it out, and we need to not suppose upon God that He needs to talk to us every day. We just don't. I just not in my life. So I got a Bible commentary that I open up and I read the Bible, and when I do read the Bible, and I have failed in that a lot, being consistent in my Bible reading in quiet time, and so when I do it, I do have my commentary out, and I read the verses, and I go back to my commentary to learn that truth. So anyway, here's Naaman. Naaman is the commander of Israel, of Syria, and Syria has conquered Israel. They conquered them. And Naaman is known to the king of Syria as an honorable man. But it also says here that he has been used by God to conquer Israel, and that he's a mighty man of valor. And I thought, man, I've heard mighty man of valor in the Bible a lot. And I thought to myself, what is a mighty man of valor? Is it just somebody that is just, I know it's courage and bravery, and I know it's probably character and just, honesty, truth. And I thought, man, I want to be a mighty man of valor. How did that happen? So, I love David. So we're going to go to 1 Samuel 22:2. And we're going to look at the 3 D's of being a mighty man of valor. And this is David. So David, let me just give you a little bit of a background on where David's at right now. David's in the cave. He's running from Saul. He just came before Amalek and had a great failure in front of Amalek. He acted like a crazy man. And so he even had spittle on his beard. He acted so crazy. So he's in the cave. And you go to Psalms 34, and he's in the cave. And then Psalms 143, it tells David wants to teach you about the things of the Lord and about the grace and mercy. So in this cave, David has came from a great failure to repentance and praising the Lord again. But David has had 400 men show up in this cave. And so it's the 3 D's of the mighty men of valor. It says, and everyone who is distressed, everyone who is in debt, and everyone who is discontented gathered to him. So he became a captain over them, and there were about 400 men. So David's in the cave. He's got 400 men living in debt, discontented, not happy. And so you wouldn't say that those are mighty men of valor. But out of this 400, they're classified, the Bible speaks of them as being mighty men of valor, but there was about 37 of them that really stood out. Mighty men of valor. So I thought, man, hey, there's hope. There's hope for me to be a mighty man of valor. So I thought to myself, what does a mighty man of valor look like today? What's he look like? Are there any? So I think a mighty man of valor is a man that is courageous in his family. I got the sniffles on. Anyway, is brave, stands out in the community, doesn't need to necessarily be in the limelight, doesn't necessarily be the man that takes the credit, doesn't necessarily need to be the man that is counseling with the elite, because it's not. My Christian mentor has a ministry, and his ministry is people like me, the common man that sits in the pew. He doesn't, he's a very godly man, preaches all over the world, but he is a man that goes and searches out the people that are not wealthy, that are not privileged. He goes out and he does the people that are poor and the people that are really having a hard time in life. So this mighty man of valor, I thought, golly, man, so we've got a mighty man of valor, and he's courageous, and he's all these things. But he started out discontented. He started out in debt. He started out distressed, the 3 Ds. Getting hope. But really the one I want to be is in this next few verses. And I think that's where it's going to lie here with us in Hopeville. And it says, and the Syrians had gone out on raid and brought back a captive young girl from the land of Israel. She waited on Naaman's wife. Then she said to her mistress, if only my master were with the prophet who is in Samaria, for he would heal him of his leprosy. So here's this young captive girl. She's probably young, and she's probably 14, 15, 16 years old. She got captured on a raid. Most likely her parents are dead. But here she is. Wow. 14, 15, 16-year-old girl saying, I love God. God is my salvation. So put yourself in her place. She's been torn away from her parents, probably dead or killed or scattered. She doesn't know what's happened to them. All the livestock, she's a piece of property. She adds to their wealth because she's a slave now. But upon her lips, she's praising God. And I thought, man, how would I act? Would I be thinking about putting poison in my captor's soup so I could go home and try to find my parents? She didn't. She was there. She was faithful in her belief. Faithful in the things that she was taught by her parents about God, about love, about grace, about mercy, about forgiveness. And we could read over that. She's only mentioned one time in this Bible. She's only mentioned one time. It's not her name. I think it says that you insert a name in here. You insert anybody's name in here. You insert Mike's name in here. Insert my name. Because we are those servants. We are those servants that need to be faithful no matter what's going on in our lives. We don't have this plight of this young lady. This young lady has gone through a tremendous trial, and she is praising God and giving him the glory. I think about that, and I'm like, man, servant, how can I serve others? Well, I think of the Iowanas back here, and we're a listener. You got to be a listener. And I got this little young man, he's great, man, he's a whippersnapper, firecracker, that little kid, he is something. Man, when you're doing his verses and he's doing his verses, you look away, you keep one eye on him and you look away, because he'll pop you, man, he'll smack you. He will. And I love that little guy. But, I mean, that's the ministry that this church has. That's where we're at. That's what we need, is we need listeners. We need people in that Awanas group. We need teachers. We need listeners. And we got, cooks, just the meals that everybody's cooking. Wow, what a ministry that is. I mean, that's, I look at that and I'm tired just looking at it. And I don't even help. I just eat. So we do have a ministry like that. We can be servants here in Hopeville. We can be that servant in Hopeville. Will that change this world? You betcha.
Amen.
You betcha. It'll change that. So let's look at D.L. Moody. Let's see what D.L. Moody says about this little servant girl. A little maid said a few words that made a commotion in two kingdoms. God honored her faith by doing for Naaman, the idolater, what he had not done for any in Israel. How often has it, I can't even read my own handwriting. How often has the finger of a child pointed grown-ups, persons, in the right direction? The maid boasted of God that he would do for Naaman what he had not done for any in Israel, and God honored her faith. Man, that is awesome. I look at that and I'm thinking, you know what? This little servant girl, here she is. She's affected two kings, King of Syria and the King of Israel. One little maid. Let's read on. This is awesome. This is an awesome. I mean, this is so awesome. When you read these kind of stories, read them slow and really ponder. I ponder these stories and I ponder what it looks like in my life, what it looked like in their life, and how. Oh, thank you, David. I've had this cold here for a while. Went from 115 to 103, and I didn't even put my jacket on. I got a cold. Oh, I can't believe it. Okay, so I love this part. So, hey, this little Syrian girl, a little Israel girl, she's taking care of Naaman's wife and attending her, being a slave. This little girl's boasting about God. I want to boast about God. I want to, it's funny, John says, hey, bring a friend today, church. I said, John, I have no friends. I'm going to have to bring you, John, because I have no friends. Why don't I have any friends? I don't know. I guess I don't have time. Shame on me. But you know what? I do have encounters with people all day. And I do want to be boastful about my God. Not about me. Not about that. So, I want to be boastful about the things of God. So let's listen to this. I love this part, so I'm going to do a little animation here. And Naaman, I got to get better glasses. I'm trying to stick with the cheaters because they're cheap. The dollar store, you can get like a free pair for like $6. You go to the optometrist, they charge you $500. And Naaman went in and told his master, saying, "Thus and thus," said the girl, "who is from the land of Israel." So I can just see Naaman walking in, an honorable man, mighty man of valor. He walks into his house, he comes off, and when he pulls up on a chariot. Now let me tell you what a chariot is in those days. The chariot is it's like being in an Abrams tank or pulling up in an Apache helicopter. That is the highest technology they had. There's not for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years, there's not a foot soldier that could hold up against charging cavalry. There's nothing. I mean, that was you couldn't stand up against that. So here, Naaman pulls up in front of his house, steps off his chariot. He doesn't say, "Hey, I have to go park the chariot." He has people that are attending to that. He walks in and he's in his armor. He's in his fine arraignment. And he walks in, and I can just hear his wife, man, just say, hey, buddy, come here, I want to tell you something. You got to go. You're going to go to Israel, and you're going to get, this guy, this prophet can do this, and this, and this. And I can just hear Naaman thinking, whoa, honey, she's conquered Israel. You've got all these things, I'm tired, been working all day, and you want me to go take off again. And I can just hear that, so he goes to the king and he says, hey, this Israel girl says it. And the king's going, oh no, your wife's upset. Oh man, she's all keyed up. I gotta go. I gotta go do this. Because if I don't, she's not gonna let me hear the end of it. Oh no, dude, I'm just like, they're doing knuckles here. They're going, oh man, gotta go. No, but I gotta, no, go, I'll take care of it. You go, I'll take care of all this stuff. We'll take care of conquering neighbors and all the administrations that you do. So here's Naaman, he goes. So what's he do? He goes and he takes a letter. And he takes probably 30 years of wages with him on his trip. He has all the trappings of this world, all the wealth. He's taken 30 years of common man's, 25 to 30 years of common man's wealth. 30 years, think of that. He's going to buy that blessing. I'm going to go, I'm going to get it. I'm going to buy it because that's how we do it. And I can just see Naaman's thought process in this. It's a conquered nation. I just conquered them. Their God didn't even save him from Syria. He's got all this stuff going on, but his wife is, she's directing this thing. And at this time, that little servant girl's on her knees and she's praying because she knows. She, in Luke 24:4, we won't go there, but it says that, let me just read that. You guys don't have to move to that, but let me just read that real quick for you. It's Luke 4:27. It says, and many lepers were in Israel in the time of Elijah, the prophet, and none of them was cleansed except Naaman of Syria. So most likely this little servant girl has never seen anybody cured by leprosy, never seen anything like that. But man, she has faith. She's heard about it. And if I'm not too sure, but I'm sure it hadn't taken place for many, many, many years. And Elijah's there, and Elijah's not curing leprosy because God hasn't told him to. So Naaman goes, takes a letter from his king to the king of Israel. He's got he's not going alone. He's going with attendees. He's not, he's got fine raiment, 10 changes of clothes, 30 years of the common man's wage. And he goes. And the king of Israel, man, as he's upset, gets this letter and says, hey, this letter says, the letter says, now be advised, when the letter comes to you, I have sent Naaman, my servant, to you, that he may be healed from leprosy. That sounds like the king of Syria is trying to pick a fight with the king of Israel. Get this thing done, and if you don't, we're going to have a problem. You're conquered, but you're going to be displaced. So the king of Israel, he's, a little bit of drama. He wrenches his clothes and rips his clothes. And, Elijah hears about it and says, you know what? Don't wrench your clothes. Don't tear your clothes. Send him to me. I think God was way out in front of this, preparing hearts, preparing minds, preparing souls. He's already prepared that little servant girl. He's already prepared her heart. She's home praying. Elijah already knows that he's going to heal him. So as we go on, it says, then Naaman went with his horses and chariot and stood at the door of Okay, so Elijah, the man of God, heard of the king of Israel and had torn his clothes, and then he sent the king saying, why have you torn your clothes? Please let him come to me, and I shall know that there is a prophet in Israel. Naaman went with his horses and chariot and stood at the door of Elijah's house. And Elijah sent a messenger to him saying, go and wash in the Jordan 7 times, and your flesh will be restored to you, and you shall be clean. But Naaman became furious and went away and said, Indeed, I said to myself, he will surely come out to me and stand and call on the name of the Lord his God and wave his hands over the place and heal the leprosy. Are not the Abaniah and the, I can't pronounce that river, and the river of Damascus better than the waters of Israel? Could I not wash in them and be clean? So he turned away and went in a rage. It's road rage. He's on his chariot. He's mad. He's mad because of his trappings of the world and his position. He wants that prophet. He's standing there, probably didn't even want to get off his chariot. So he has to be healed of two things. He has to be healed of his pride, first and foremost. And he has to be healed of leprosy. I think pride is most important probably here. And I think back for myself as I read these stories, and I can only apply it to myself. I can't apply it to anybody else. I just can't. I don't want to. I don't want to be judgmental and legalistic. And we're going to get that. That's going to be part of my closing. Is my pride. I'm a prideful man. I know that you don't think so, but I am. I'm a prideful man. I have to battle that. I'm a prideful man. And I don't like it. It's the pride of this life. It's the wealth of this life. It's the materialism of this life. It's just those things that really don't matter at the end of the day. That really don't matter at the end of this life, because God's not going to look at my bank account. He's not going to look at at what I've accumulated. He's going to want to look at my heart. He's going to want to look at the faithful things that I did and I stood for. And he's going to look at those kind of things. He's not going to look at those things that I put so much value in. And the problem is, I like work. I like to work. I like going to work. I like staying late. I like getting up early. I like doing multiple things. I like doing that. And I think that's a talent. And I got to remember, this is a talent from God. This is not my talent. This is something that he's given me. And either I can use it for righteousness or I can use it for myself. But pride of shame, that doesn't work. It's either you're all in. You're all in like this little servant girl. This little servant girl's all in. She's in. She's in this thing. She's in it 100%. She's off. She doesn't know what. There are no telephones. She doesn't know what Naaman's doing or the rapes that he's in. She's there. She's going, yes. Just like that little guy that's learning this memory verse, man, and whack, we're headbutting. I love this little guy. And it's just that memory verse, and I say, yes, he's getting it. And we do a lot of memory verses, but the thing I tell this little boy, and the thing I want him to know, as I said, what is Jesus? What is Jesus doing for you? I said, what? How do I ask it? We have this little thing that we go to. What is Jesus? What does Jesus say to you? Jesus loves me. If he leaves here and never comes back to this church, when he's grown up, I hope when he goes through a trial that he's going to say, you know what? Jesus loves me. Amen. I got to remember that. That speaks more to my heart than it probably does to his right now. So I always tell him, what is Jesus? Jesus loves me. Jesus loves me. Jesus loves me. He's got to repeat that probably 50 times. Doesn't really do well on his memory verse, but I love it because I don't do well on my memory verses either. So I have grace. So. Okay, so let's look. We got to get through this thing. Oh no. Okay, so let's look at this real quick. I prepared for 45, but it looks like we're not going to get out early today. So let's look at this real quick. I'm going to go through these things and I'll finish up here. So he doesn't want to wash in the Damascus. He doesn't want to wash in the Jordan because the Jordan's not very big and it's dirty. Every picture I've ever seen is kind of green sometimes and it's kind of muddy sometimes. It's not his status. But look at what God's doing. He's taken an unclean vessel, he's taken an idolater to conquer Israel. He has put this little servant girl in his path. Now he's going to go in front of Elijah the prophet. Elijah's told him to go down and wash. This guy's hot. He's in a rage. One of his captains come, and he said, "Are not see." And the servants came near and spoke to him and said, "My father, if the prophet had told you to do something great, would you have done it? How much more when you say to you, wash and be clean?" So he went down and he dipped himself 7 times in the Jordan, according to the saying of the man of God, and the flesh was restored like the flesh of a little child, and he was clean. Yeah, can't you see it? Look, I picture it something like the Alamo River here, bunch of weeds, dusty, dirty. Here's this man of God, has more money, more power, more anything. His wife's sitting, my wife's sitting on this thing. Go down in Jordan, gonna do it. So he goes down, he's taking off his armor. He's not on a day trip. He's got his armor, he's gonna have to take it off. So he's there, he says, I might as well do it. He's probably behind the weeds, and those people are saying, the servants of his people are saying, yes, go, please, go. He goes down, he dips, he's clean. He comes up. And I'm going to speed this up a little bit. So what he does is he goes back to Elijah's house. And then, now he's off the chariot. He's humbled. He's just had an experience with God that has changed his life. And he goes to Elijah and he's looking at him. He wants to pay for it. He says, no, I'm not going to pay for it. Nothing. I'm going to take nothing. Elijah was, wow. You know what that meant? I mentioned Elisha had needs. But his faith is in God. He didn't take anything. And so here's Elijah, he's standing there, and Naaman's talking. He says, hey, can I take some dirt of Israel with me on some mules so I can put it and lay it out so I can worship on the ground of Israel where I'm at? Yes, you can. And he says, I hope that you will forgive me, or your God will forgive me when I go in with my king, and I will have to bow down to his God. And I love this part. Elisha said nothing. A lot of times in the current days when people come into and start that relationship with Christ, and they finally figure out they're lost, they're sinners, and the only way that they can be reconciled to God is through Jesus Christ, and that the cross, he died upon the cross for their sins. And they finally realize that as soon as they give that Christian prayer and they say that, we get the book of rules and we flip it out. Don't do this, don't do that, don't do this. You gotta stop this, you gotta stop that. And they're thinking, oh man, I'm gonna fail. But Elijah didn't do that. He didn't do that. Let him go. He's going to let God work in Elijah's. Elijah's going to let God work in Naaman's life. So he didn't give him the book of rules. We don't need to give the book of rules. When people are coming to Christ and they're considering it and they're finding out that they're sinners, saved by grace, that they don't need those book of rules. They need us to be encouraging. They need us to come alongside. They need us to love them to the cross. Amen. Not to get that book of, well, you said it. Ooh, I saw you say it, man. You're good. We're good. Here's your book of rules. Don't do this, don't do that, don't do that. Well, that doesn't work. That doesn't work. That's a turnoff for people. Because I've done it. I've led a few people to Christ and, make those mistakes. I think back on that. I think back on that stock market. I think back on that failure. And then I think back on the people that I've witnessed to and the failures that I've had in that servant girl. Oh, I don't know what heaven's going to be like. Don't know. But man, I know if we get to meet Moses and Daniel and David and all these patriarchs of the Bible, that you know what? I surely want to meet this little servant girl and her parents. Because they're common like me. They're common, nothing special. Her name's not even mentioned, but she rocked 2 kingdoms. So he comes in, getting to the end here. What time is it? My glasses don't work that far back. Okay. So anyway, we're going to see how sin, we can't have a good Bible story without sin entering into the picture, right? So Elisha sends him on his way. Here's this guy that has had a God experience. Everybody around him has seen it. Gehazi, Elijah's assistant, helper, right there, probably attends to Elisha and makes sure everything works out. Couldn't stand it. It's all that money, all that wealth. Takes off after him. Because he knows that Naaman doesn't have a foundation of Christ yet, doesn't have a foundation in God yet. Still is up saying, hey, he didn't let me pay for it. He's going to have to go back and really reflect that it's not for sale. God's mercy and God's grace is not for sale. It doesn't matter how much you give money in this church, it's not for sale. You've got to go hammer it out for yourself. Not me. I can't, even if I gave you a message, and you've got to go hammer this out for yourself. Pastor Moore gives the message. You've got to go hammer it out for yourself. You've got to hammer out these truths. You've got to hammer out grace, mercy, salvation. You've got to hammer out forgiveness. You've got to hammer those things out in your life. Nobody's going to do it for you. Nobody. Nobody's going to do it. I'd like to, you know what I'd like to do is I'd like to find somebody that can exercise for me. You know, do some sit-ups, maybe some free weights, and impugn that on me so I could, get thinned up and get healthy again. I'd love to have that. I'm waiting for technology to come and do that. I'd hire somebody to do that. I really would. That'd be awesome. But the Word of God's not like that. You've got to do it for yourself. So Gehazi takes off, man. He's a man of God. Takes off. He gets that money. Gets paid for it. Elisha knows. Can't hide anything. Can't hide anything from God. Can't hide your heart. Can't hide your thoughts. Can't hide the way you feel. So today, I'm sure there's I think about it, there's a lot of people here today in Hopeville that probably sitting down, getting the barbecue ready, having a beer, upset, got the 3 Ds going on. And if one of us went to him or became friends with him and explained to him the love of God, the salvation, the cross, he probably could be a mighty man of valor for God. He just needs that. He needs that encouragement. He needs that love and that caring. So, this is the common man's message. So, if I've made a mistake, forgive me. If not, I'm going to let you guys out early and let Pastor take over here. So, thank you very much.
And we're going to go ahead and close out with a song. And if you want to come and pray, we'll be here. The ministry team will be glad to pray with you about anything. If you just want to bow before the Lord and talk to Him, that's even better. But we're here to pray. If you have needs, if you'd like to be saved, we'll be glad to share with you how you can become a Christian, how you can become a mighty man of valor. You've heard it, but you have to humble yourself and receive Jesus. Let's stand as we sing.
¿Ya grabaste? ¿Seguro que dice? Sí, pero no, pero ¿cómo lo paro? Pues aquí.